faster. You don't wanna see me with my gun running at ya. If I empty this magazine on you niggas, this final chapter. Murder foes, and then I'll burn my clothes after. Clips filled to the climax.
This is 33-year-old Micheal Gibson, who goes by Tyke. He's a rapper hailing from the Regent Park area, and the second half of the duo, Tyke and Turk, aka TNT. This pair is known for tracks like Flatline, Missing You, Outlaws, and dozens of other songs spread throughout mixtapes. Tyke also has a list of his own singles, such as Stay Schemin', Bloodline, Ain't As Change, and more. Now it seems like Tyke was a promising rapper, but growing up in a neighborhood like Regent Park, he got caught up in the streets and sadly set on a violent path in the center of an unfortunate story. So today, on Savages from the Six, we'll take a look at Regent Park's Tyke. Now Tyke was raised in the south half of the large spanning Regent Park, which is one of Canada's first housing projects that sadly, over the years has become the birthplace for a handful of gangs, leading to violence and drug trafficking in the area. This was the place where Tyke called home. By the young age of 14, he found himself taking a liking to rap, and it only escalated after meeting Turk in 2004. The two clicked and they began making tracks together over the next few years. In 2007, Tyke and Turk released their first debut album, Bout to Blow, which managed to sell over 4,000 units across the nation, with HMV putting the album on shelves, selling out within days. Musically, things were going great for Tyke, and it seemed like he had a solid future laid out. He was consistently putting out tracks and focusing on his craft. Unfortunately, his focus would slowly start to diminish as he grew older and started becoming involved in more than just rapping. Tyke found himself tied up with a notorious gang in Regent Park called Sick Thugz, also known as Silent Soldiers. This is a proven violent group with links to shootings and homicides all over Toronto, stemming from their ongoing beef with gangs around the city like Halal Gang, which is the group that slain rapper Smoke Dogg was part of. Members of Sick Thugz have habitually appeared on news reports and media, accused by police of everything from murders to heists, and even finding themselves to be victims of homicides too. The two people killed in the publicized Eaton Center shooting of 2012 were both alleged Sick Thug members. Tyke's family relative, Marcus Gibson, also an alleged member, was found dead in a Rivertown home in 2016. Marcus was previously acquitted of a first-degree murder charge in the 2014 Garden restaurant shooting that left the man shot to death. The members of the gang have constantly found themselves in the media's eye, and Tyke would soon follow along for his first documented history of police. This incident takes place on February 19, 2010, a few years after Tyke saw success with his first debut album with Turk. Police were investigating a unit at 25 Polson Street, located on the waterfront of South Toronto. This was actually a recording studio that Tyke and other artists used. In the early morning hours, police raided the studio and ended up arresting 8 people, one of those people being Tyke. Police began searching the unit and the entire building. They came across a certain room and then removed the ceiling tiles, exposing a secret stash. They seized a large quantity of crack, oxycodone, and marijuana, as well as 2 loaded handguns. Tyke and the others were all arrested, but somehow, all 8 of them ended up being acquitted of any of the charges related to the raid. Even though Tyke was acquitted, it seemed like he was involved with Sick Thugz, and so police made sure he stayed on their radar. The next instance of Tyke would be in a crime more heinous than the last. We're now brought to April 2nd, 2016, to a bar at 366 Queen Street East called Fuse. Tyke and a few of his friends were at this bar, remembering another friend and fellow Sick Thugz member, Sion Carrington, aka C-Sick, who was shot and killed just a month before, relating to a gang feud. After the gathering, one of the men, 27-year-old Julian Weeks, left the bar and started walking down the street, not knowing that he was being followed by someone. While walking on Parliament Street, a man approached Julian and without warning, opened fire on him, striking him multiple times. Fatally wounded, Julian ran off in an attempt to escape the shooter, but the damage was done. He was able to make it a few blocks, but collapsed in the parking lot of a gas station nearby and died. Police quickly swarmed the area after getting calls of a wounded man stopping cars in traffic, asking for help. When they arrived to find Julian deceased, laying in a large pool of blood, they followed the trail that led back to the fuse bar. There, the police discovered more blood and a bunch of shell casings. Now that they determined the scene of the shooting, they started to investigate. Police took statements from various witnesses, but at the time, they had no description of a suspect and no leads towards finding the shooter. But things would change fast. Thanks to the help from the community, as well as investigations, within a couple of weeks, the police were able to come up with a prime suspect for the murder. Micheal Gibson, Tyke, was declared the shooter and was now wanted for first-degree murder. It seems like Tyke and the victim Julian knew each other, but there wasn't a clear motive for the killing. There's some speculation that Julian had some sort of ties with Halal Gang, and this could be a reason for Tyke targeting him. Regardless of the cause, months went by and it wasn't looking like Tyke was turning himself in. Months turned to over a year, and in March of 2017, police made a statement to the public saying they think Tyke may have fled the country, in turn putting him on Toronto's most wanted list, considering him armed and dangerous. Now the police already had a suspicion that Tyke had fled Canada, but they had no idea where in the world he was. Since he probably left the country before he was declared a suspect and a flight risk, he could potentially be anywhere across the globe. The Toronto police continued the search for Tyke, but they themselves wouldn't end up ever finding him. It would actually be a different police force from a whole different country at the edge of the continent. We're now brought thousands of miles away from Toronto to the small Caribbean island of Aruba. This beautiful sunny island was where Tyke was calling home for the past year. Seems like he was keeping a low profile, and only his own actions will put him in the spotlight of local police. Now it's alleged that he was staying around the north part of the island, in a district called Jabberberry. In May of 2017, another Toronto man, 25-year-old Twee Quach, was in Aruba. Now Twee was also from the Regent Park area, and apparently he knew Tyke. So it seemed that he was in Aruba for the two to meet up, but for what purpose is still unclear. Unfortunately, Twee wouldn't end up ever making it back to Canada. On the early morning of May 1st, 2017, it's alleged that Tyke, Twee, a few men, and some ladies were having a party in an apartment complex in Jabberberry. It's reported that the ladies were downstairs, and all of the men were upstairs in the room, organizing a supposed drug deal. One of the men claimed Tyke pulled them aside to another room and showed him a gun, before returning to the deal. At this point, Twee is shot and killed inside the apartment. Everyone inside the unit fled the scene immediately, and the body wasn't found until around noon. When police discovered Twee, they were able to quickly link the murder to a vehicle that was seen speeding away from the scene earlier. They located said vehicle with occupants inside, and a dramatic, high-speed chase ensued, which ended in the suspect's car being rammed and flipped over by police. There were 4 people inside of the car, one of which, most notably being Tyke, sporting a new look without his hair. All of the occupants were promptly arrested, and Tyke was charged with the murder of Twee. Only after being arrested did the Aruba police realize that he had a nationwide murder warrant in Canada. The Toronto police tried to have Tyke extradited back immediately, but Aruba had plans for him to face his local charges first. In October of 2019, 3 whole years after killing Julian Weeks, Tyke went to trial and faced Aruba courts for the murder of Twee Quach. I found news reports in Aruba claiming he was facing a 15-year sentence, and apparently the verdict was reached on October 28th, but I can't find any information as to whether or not he was found guilty. But from what I could find, and what could be translated, it seems like they had a good amount of evidence against Tyke, including witnesses at the party. It appeared that even in Aruba, Tyke got mixed up in the drug trade and managed to get his hands on firearms. Who knows if Toronto police ever would have caught Tyke if he just stayed out of trouble while he was on the run. Now if he is found guilty for killing Twee, it seems like he'd be serving the full sentence in Aruba, since there isn't an extradition treaty with Canada. Only once that bit is done will he return to Canada to face his murder charge for Julian. Now whether or not Tyke is in Canada or Aruba, we know for sure that he'll be behind bars either way. It seems like he was as deep in the streets as he was in music, and frankly he was dedicated to both. It's another tragic end to a story, with 2 lives lost and more lives affected. Tyke really had a potential in rap, but he proved that sometimes your environment can really just overpower individual talent. Rest in peace to all those who died in this story.